Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say, what's a cleric's favorite car manufacturer? Ford, because every cleric needs focus. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 Dungeons and Dragons games, board games of all time. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, my top 10 Dungeons and Dragons games. Let me be very clear here. I'm talking about boxed board games, in one case, a miniatures game, but I'm not talking about the role playing game. To be honest, I've never been much of a role playing guy. It's never been my thing. I like boxed board games, and so that's what we're looking at here. Boxed board games in the Dungeons and Dragons genre theme IP. So let me go ahead and get started. First of all, we've got an honorable mention, and this is Trials of Tempest. This came out a few years ago. This did not survive the purge of 2024 when I got married, because there's another game that I think is kind of like it that I like a little better. But this one was kind of a fun team game where you are kind of moving throughout, various, dungeons. You got, I think it's a double-sided board. There were a ton of tokens, and you had these really cool monsters. And you're kind of fighting against each other, but you're also fighting on these monsters. It was a lot of fun. That's my honorable mention, Trials of Tempest. But let's go ahead and take a look at my top 10 list right now. Number 10 is Dungeons and Dragons Assault of the Giants. This is from WizKids, and Assault of the Giants was a really cool game. Again, you had these really cool miniatures, and there was I had the deluxe version where they were painted, and this game just looked beautiful, just absolutely popped on the board. But it was kind of a fun game because you have these armies, and you're playing command cards. You are I think to move, to attack, I think to pillage, to muster, these sorts of things. You were doing that to build up these armies, but then again, you can get these massive and beautiful miniatures on the board, and just kind of have these big battles, and it was a lot of fun. So that is my number 10, Assault of the Giants. That was from WizKids. My number 9 is a game that, again, came out a few years ago. They released it. There was some controversy over the price point. They actually have come out with it. I think a new one, a new starter one. I haven't played the starter one, but I do have it, and I want to play the new one. But this is Onslaught, Dungeons and Dragons Onslaught. This is a great kind of two-player skirmish game. And what's cool here is you've got this really cool initiative system with cards. You lay out the cards, and then depending on kind of what monsters were where in this number line, they would activate. Because it was like, I think it was whole numbers for like the heroes, but then the other monsters and stuff would have like 0.5, like 2.5 or 7.5, and that's when they would activate. And it was just really fun. I really like the initiative system here. But again, you had a ton of great tokens and cards and items you could pick up, and you really feel like you're questing in this one-on-one kind of duel. And I really enjoyed it. So that is my number 9. That is Onslaught, again from WizKids. My number 8 is a miniatures game, and this takes a system that had been used before with other IPs, and it puts it to Dungeons and Dragons in a very cool way. And this is Dungeons and Dragons Attack Wing. Now, again, this is kind of a riff on the Star Wars Attack Wing, which was a riff on Star Wars X-Wing. But this is really cool because you would take the dragon models and you'd have templates you'd put out, just like in those other games, and you'd move them, and then you get into kind of positions where you could fire. You're breathing your fire literally here. But again, there were really some cool dragon miniatures. You had some great card play in here and cards you could add to them. I really enjoyed this one. This one, I don't know that this one ever really took off, so to speak, because it just, I don't know that it captured the imaginations. It seems like it wasn't around too long. I really enjoyed it. I just had the starter set, and I don't even remember what I did with my starter set. I probably gave it to a friend or donated it or something, and I kind of wished I hadn't because it was such a good game. But back in the day, I figured, I've got this and I've got X-Wing, and at the time I had a massive amount of Star Trek Attack Wing, and I ended up getting rid of my Star Trek Attack Wing too. So you can't keep everything, right? So that is Dungeons and Dragons Attack Wing, again from WizKids. My number 7 this was probably maybe the first Dungeons and Dragons board game I played. And I liked it because it's got a lot of spooky stuff in it, including a vampire. This is Castle Ravenloft. Now, there were several games that Dungeons and Dragons put out kind of in these boxed lines where you're questing and there's monsters that come out at you. And I always really liked this system. I think I played some of the others. I don't think I ever owned any of the others, but but Castle Ravenloft to me, I loved the theme. It felt almost more horror than fantasy, although it certainly was fantasy. But again, great cards and battle, great cards and artwork, but the battles you could engage in and the fights you had were just a lot of fun. Castle Ravenloft is one of the great haunted house games. In fact, if I remember correctly, Castle Ravenloft was one of the first games I can remember getting a review copy for, because I think I actually reviewed this when I was writing for the paper before I did the Discriminating Gamer. It was one of the first review copies I got, and I really enjoyed it quite a bit. So that is Castle Ravenloft, and that is my number 7, again, from WizKids. My number 6 is a game that was, again, this is another game that was a riff on an earlier game, and this is Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. Now, Betrayal at Baldur's Gate is a riff on Betrayal at House on the Hill. And this was from Avalon Hill, Wizards of the Coast. And House on the Hill was a horror game. You're in a haunted house, and you can trigger all these different events that lead to the haunt, and you never know who the traitor is going to be, and the haunt can be any of these kind of horror film tropes. But here it's fantasy, and so they take kind of Dungeons and Dragons into fantasy, and you and your friends are kind of exploring the city, but then certain things can trigger, and suddenly you've got a different kind of adventure that you're going on. It's a very narrative game, but it's a lot of fun. And of course, the traitor takes their book to find their objectives. The heroes take their book to look at their objectives. It's great fun. I still prefer the Betrayal at House on the Hill, because I like the horror theme a little bit better. But I really do like Baldur's Gate, Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. I've still got that game, and it's very fun. So that is my number 6, Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, and that is from Avalon Hill, Wizards of the Coast. My number 5 is a game. I never played the first edition of the game, but then it came out again a few years later, and Gale Force 9 sent me a copy. And this is Tyrants of the Underdark. Tyrants of the Underdark is a great game. It's a deck building game, but then at the same time, you are moving your forces throughout these tunnels and these different locations, and you're fighting each other. Again, you've got some really fun artwork here. You've got some great cards, and the deck building is so awesome, because it's the deck building that allows you to move stuff, or to get more forces, or just do all sorts of fun things. And I love deck builders, and I love when deck building is really implemented well into a bigger board game. And I really enjoyed this. Now, I think the earlier edition had like minis and stuff, and I think this one just had cubes or what have you. But it's a really fun game. It's a good deck builder slash area control game, and it was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it, and I like the variety too. You wouldn't necessarily play with the same decks in every game. You could flip it up and have different enemies and different decks of characters in there, and I really enjoyed that quite a bit. So that is Tyrants of the Underdark. That is number 5. That is from Gale Force 9. My number 4 is a game I actually just played very recently, and this is Dungeons and Dragons Horrified. Now, the Horrified games are great. Of course, you are heroes, you're cooperative, you're working together to defeat these monsters, and the monsters have their own little mini games that you play. So as you are attacking them, you're trying to solve these puzzles and do these other fun and interesting things. But what I like here about Dungeons and Dragons Horrified is you have a D20. None of the other Horrified games have this. And you have these D20s that you can roll. You have a D20 that you can roll to find out different actions that are happening on your character, right? You can do as an action to see kind of what you can do once you roll a d20. But then you have like the beholder, and the beholder comes out, and it's got the different eye tentacles, and if he attacks you, you roll the die and you see which eye tentacle attacks you and how it attacks you. And then 2, you roll the die when you attack it to try to take off see how many of its tentacles you can X out. But it's really fun. It's got a great theme. The board is beautiful. It's a work of art, and it's just a whole lot of fun going after these monsters, the Displacer Beast and the Mimic, and then of course the Red Dragon. Really a lot of fun. That is D&D Horrified, and that is from Ravensburger. My number 3 is a game that has a special place in my heart, because this was the first worker placement game I ever played. This, of course, is Lords of Waterdeep from Avalon Hill, Wizards of the Coast. And this was a it is a great game. It remains a great game. I still have it. Um, of course, worker placement. Now, some people say, well, there's been other better worker placement games so far. There have been. And in fairness, I haven't actually played this one in a long time, but I still just love it. It's just, like I say, it's the first worker placement I played, and it's always very interesting to me. Now, a lot of people say if you play this, you need to play with the expansion. I own the expansion. I have never played with the expansion. I hope to. I want to. I actually recently just got Folded Space sent me an insert. I did a review on the insert. The insert's beautiful. And I'm very much looking forward to playing this game again because it is a lot of fun. So that is Lords of Waterdeep. That is from Wizards of the Coast, Avalon Hill. My number 2 is a game that I played again for the first time not too long ago, and it just absolutely charmed me. And this is Dungeons & Dragons Builders of Baldur's Gate. Builders of Baldur's Gate is a great city building game where you are getting these building cards and kind of forming a tableau in front of you. But you also, there's a bit of a push your luck aspect here. There's also these attacks that happen on the city, and you have to build up fortifications. And you got to make sure you're building in the right place. And then there's only certain buildings, only certain plots on the board where you can build buildings, but you're trying to connect your buildings as best you can. It's really a lot of fun. We actually had a blast with this game. Absolutely fell in love with it. I love this kind of, when I talk about Euros, this is the kind I absolutely love. Deeply thematic, beautiful production, great minis for parts of the buildings, the fortifications that you build, and just really fun. There's a great tension there because you never knew where the attack was going to hit next because it's a pull from a bag, and really a lot of fun. So that is number 2, Builders of Baldur's Gate. That is from WizKids. All right, my number 1 Dungeons & Dragons game of all time. Now, friends, if you are a fan of the channel, if you know me at all, you probably guessed what this one is. This, of course, is Dungeons & Dragons Conquest of Nerath. Dungeons & Dragons Conquest of Nerath is essentially Axis and Allies in Dungeons & Dragons. Instead of bombers, you've got dragons. Instead of tanks, you've got wizards, right? And it's a very fun game, and it's a game that does not reward turtling. You can't just sit there and build up. You've got to go out and attack. That's how you're going to score points in the game. And what's cool here, too, is in addition to just kind of the battles on the board, you've also got, like, dungeons, and you can actually send your wizards and heroes into dungeons in order to get treasures and rewards that will further help you in the game. This is a great light war game, some great minis. I love the dice you're rolling. You're rolling different kinds of dice. It's a tremendous, tremendous light war game with this wonderful Dungeons & Dragons theme. I absolutely love Conquest of Nerath. I am sad it is no longer in print. I keep hoping they're going to bring it back at some point. Who knows? Maybe if they can work out the rights, Renegade could put it out with their Axis and Allies line. I'd love to see it. In any event, my favorite Dungeons & Dragons board game is Conquest of Nerath. That's from Avalon Hill and Wizards of the Coast. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those are my top 10 Dungeons & Dragons board games. I love the theme. It's so much fun, and they've done some great jobs implementing these games into box board games. What do you think about the games on my list? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Are there other Dungeons & Dragons board games that you think I should play? I'm very interested to hear what your thoughts are. Please, please, please leave a comment here on YouTube or at Board Game Geek or Twitter or Facebook, wherever. We'd love to hear from you. Please, please, please like this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel. That helps us out a lot. Please leave a thumb for us on Board Game Geek as well. Now, if you really do like what we do here, please check out my other channel. That is Cody Carlson, PhD, where I talk about history, military history, books on history. I even post some of my lectures on there. Please subscribe to that channel as well. It would mean the world to me. And if you do really like what you see here on The Discriminating Gamer, I would humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button and leave a tip. What's the worst thing about being an illiterate wizard? You can't spell.
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the pen. God knows that I love to fight, but I don't ever win. It's a fine line to damnation, but God let me in.
I can use nukes. Do you want to?
Yes, nuke. nuke.
I don't have nukes loaded.
Now load the nuke.
All right, I'm firing a nuke for Captain.
And make it so.
Okay, but wait, I want to get on film.